Traditional textile industry of India. Industrialization essentially signifies the extent of industrial development of a country. Before the colonial rule, there was a time when India was the industrial workshop of the world. We have seen earlier how Indian goods, particularly textiles and spices, were in demand throughout the world. Till the early 19th century, India was a great center of craft and industry. However, this scenario changed when the Industrial Revolution started in England. After the Industrial Revolution, Britain took the lead in the mechanized production of textiles. Its iron and steel industry also grew at tremendous pace. This was closely related to the conquest and colonization of India by Britain, which led to the destruction of the traditional Indian cotton textile industry through a process known as deindustrialization. It was not until the end of the 19th century that the Indian cotton textiles industry regained its premier position, with the setting up of new and mechanized cotton textile producing units towards the end of the 19th century. Weaving has always been an integral part of Indian civilization since the Harappan age. Even in the 18th century, weavers excelled in the art of weaving, and India was one of the largest exporters of textiles in the world. Indian textiles have long been renowned for their quality and exquisite craftsmanship. The merchants made enormous profits by trading in textiles. Towns such as Surat, Calicut, Masulipatam and Vishakhapatnam emerged as prominent trading centers, while Dhaka, Bhuj, Madurai, etc. developed as specialized production centers for fine textiles. Some of the varieties of cotton textiles in great demand in Europe were muslin, bandhani, calico and chintz. Classification based on size. In terms of money invested, number of people employed and production quantity, industries can be classified into the following categories. Cottage or household industries. The smallest manufacturing units are placed under this category. It is characterized by hand manufacture using locally available raw materials at home. The goods may be produced for consumption in the same household or for sale in the local markets. Potters, weavers, blacksmiths, carpenters and craftspersons are usually engaged in cottage industry. Only small capital and marginal transport expenditure are required for such industries. Small-scale industries. These involve organization of skilled craftspersons and employed labor in which there is a greater use of capital, more machines, electric power, and raw materials that are both locally available or brought in from outside. Products are more standardized and of better quality. Production caters to a larger market but on a small scale outside the areas of manufacturing. Food products, textiles, consumer goods, ceramics, wood products are all categorized as small-scale industries. Large-scale industries. These industries are capital-intensive. They utilize heavy machinery, consume a lot of power, and employ numerous skilled laborers. Raw materials are obtained from a variety of sources or are even imported. Production is on a large scale and caters to a national and international market. Technology is specialized and quality control is important. The iron and steel industry, the automobile industry, and chemical manufacturing are some examples of such industries. Untouchability and the Dalits. People who have been traditionally considered untouchables or Dalits have been engaged in some of the most significant occupations in society. They have been socially segregated and have been forced to follow many discriminatory rules and customs. They have been forced to live at the margins of the society, often on the outskirts of villages, have been denied access to common sources of water, lest it should get impure by their touch, and have been denied entry to houses of dominant caste people, places of religious worship, or even educational institutions. Even till the early 20th century, in many places, the Dalits still faced discrimination based on this age-old social practice. as they have been forced to remain at the margins of the society, denied right to education. They have always been economically dependent on the dominant castes and have been economically exploited by them as well. As a result, they have been one of the poorest sections of society. However, after independence, education and social emancipation, the rigidity of the caste system has been diluted. Due to the efforts of social reformers such as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and many others, educational opportunities have been opened for them. In modern India, untouchability is a punishable offence. Dalits today are educated and are also free to choose their own profession. The government has also taken special measures to assimilate the marginalized sections into the mainstream of society. Lack of access to education. A major cause of marginalization in society is illiteracy. Education enables people to choose their profession and also broaden their outlook. Due to lack of education brought about by social customs or poverty, people might not get a chance to come out of their stereotyped image and, as a result, continue to face marginalization. Due to illiteracy and ignorance, the marginalized sections are more likely to accept all kinds of discrimination without raising their voice. Lack of access to justice. The economically and socially weaker sections of society have been traditionally denied all kinds of justice. They have faced all kinds of harsh treatments, but have failed to muster enough courage in the fear of adverse consequences to raise their voice. Even when they protested, their views have been suppressed by the dominant castes. As a result, the exploitation got more deeply entrenched. The scheduled castes. The scheduled caste, SC, is the legal and constitutional name given to the lowest ranks of society, including the Dalits, who have been given certain special privileges. The SC are divided into many castes and subcastes. They have benefited by the policy of reservation, whereby seats have been reserved for them in government-run institutions. This way, the government aims to make them educated and self-sufficient so that they can come out of the shackles of the caste system and lead a respectable life. The scheduled tribes or Adivasis. Tribals or the Adivasis are believed to be the original inhabitants of the country. Officially, they are called the scheduled tribes, STs. Adivasis are not a homogeneous group with more than 200 tribes speaking over 100 languages, which vary greatly in ethnicity and culture. They have lived mainly in forests, and many of them have lived for centuries, maintaining their primitive lifestyle without any interaction with modern civilization. Adivasis live in different parts of the country. Their greatest concentration is in central India, notably Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Odisha, the Western Ghats, hills of Gujarat, and Maharashtra and northern Andhra Pradesh. There are smaller groups in the mountain areas of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka, and also in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Adivasis also constitute a major part of the population of the northeastern states, Assam, Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Arunachal Pradesh. The Adivasis have always preferred to remain outside the boundaries of the traditional society. They have their own social customs, and most of them have self-sufficient economic structures as well. During the British rule, the rulers wanted to exploit the natural resources of the areas inhabited by the Adivasis, so they interfered in the tribal socio-economic setup. The Forest Regulation Act of 1865 empowered the British government to declare any land covered with trees or brushwood as government property. The Indian Forest Act, passed in 1878, imposed restrictions upon the Adivasi rights over forest land and produce in these protected and reserved forests. The Act turned the traditional common property of the Adivasi communities into state property. Moreover, the British forced the tribals to pay taxes. Many of them had to take loans to pay these taxes. The tribal lands were occupied by money lenders, zamindars, and traders for non-repayment of loans. The opening of mines and factories in the heart of tribal lands and the clearing of forests due to introduction of railways led to a large-scale displacement of the tribal population. Many tribal leaders decided to protest against these discriminatory policies. As a result, the British had to face many significant tribal rebellions, such as the Santhal Rebellion and the Coal Rebellion. As punishment for Adivasi resistance to British rule, the Criminal Tribes Act was passed by the British, declaring the Adivasis to be criminals. Adivasi uprisings in the Jharkhand belt were suppressed by deployment of troops across the region. Birsa Munda was one of the most prominent figures who led tribal uprisings against the British. Unfortunately, even today, many Adivasis still live in extreme poverty. The rapid rate of urbanization and industrialization have led to the loss of habitat for many Adivasis. Many forests have been cut down to build industries and cities. Since they have lost their homes and their primitive sources of livelihood, Adivasis have been forced to lead an urbanized life. However, most of them find it difficult to adjust to the new setup. While some sections of the Adivasi communities have got assimilated into the mainstream of the society, many of them are still battling poverty and illiteracy. The Constitution aimed at educating the tribal people to enable them to adjust to the mainstream life. Special provisions have been made for them in the Constitution. Other backward classes. Another marginalized community are the other backward classes, OBCs, those who are socially and educationally backward, as have been recognized by the central or the state governments. They have been given reservations in government institutions so that they become well equipped to lead a better life. Constitutional provisions for the protection of the marginalized. The leaders of independent India wanted to establish equality in society. Equality is one of the basic principles of Indian democracy. The leaders realized that the marginalized sections need to get some special privileges so that they can easily come at par with the rest of the people in the society. The first amendment to the Constitution, passed in 1951, allowed the states to make special provisions for the advancement of socially and educationally backward classes of citizens, that is, the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. The Constitution aims to protect the interests of the marginalized sections, though a threefold strategy, by providing measures that would ensure equality and abolish discriminatory practices, by acts of positive discriminations where preferential treatment is given to the marginalized sections, by providing resources and benefits for the overall development of the marginalized sections. Fundamental rights. The Constitution safeguards the rights of all the citizens of the country by giving them certain fundamental rights which are essential to the security and well-being of the citizens. Let's read about some fundamental rights which directly benefit the marginalized communities. Right to equality. The right to equality states that all citizens are equal in the eyes of law. It prohibits the state from discriminating against any citizen on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Article 16 ensures equality of opportunity to citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state. However, the state can make provisions for socially and educationally backward classes which are not adequately represented. Article 17 forbids the practice of untouchability in any form. Right against exploitation. Article 23 and 24 provide two provisions: prohibition of forced labor and prohibition of employment of children below the age of 14 years and in hazardous jobs such as those in factories and mines. Cultural and educational rights. These rights aim to preserve India's rich cultural heritage. They allow every citizen to preserve his or her own language and script. They also direct the state to grant financial aids to institutions promoting a distinct language, script, or culture to protect and develop it. Right to constitutional remedies. Article 32 empowers all the citizens to approach the Supreme Court of India to seek enforcement or protection against the violation of their fundamental rights. It provides a remedy in the form of a fundamental right for enforcement of all the other fundamental rights. Right to education. The right to education, which came into effect on 1st April 2010, states that every child who has attained the age of 6 years shall have the right to be admitted to a neighborhood school and receive free and compulsory education till he or she is 14 years of age. Cultural and educational rights. These rights aim to preserve India's rich cultural heritage. They allow every citizen to preserve his or her own language and script. They also direct the state to grant financial aids to institutions promoting a distinct language, script, or culture to protect and develop it. Right to constitutional remedies. Article 32 empowers all the citizens to approach the Supreme Court of India to seek enforcement or protection against the violation of their fundamental rights. It provides a remedy in the form of a fundamental right for enforcement of all the other fundamental rights. Right to education. The right to education, which came into effect on 1st April 2010, states that every child who has attained the age of 6 years shall have the right to be admitted to a neighborhood school and receive free and compulsory education till he or she is 14 years of age. Directive Principles of State Policy. The directive principles of state policy are guidelines to the central and state governments in India to be kept in mind while framing laws and policies. These directives aim to provide social justice by treating all the people in the society equally. Reservation. One of the means of bringing the marginalized sections into the mainstream of society is through reservations. Reservations are special provisions for the marginalized sections. To ensure political participation of the marginalized sections, seats have been reserved for them in the central and state legislatures, and also in local government bodies. In government services, some percentage of the jobs are reserved for the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. In institutes of higher learning, some seats are reserved for these communities. Welfare departments in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment look after the welfare of these groups by implementing developmental programs. National Commissions. To effectively implement the various safeguards built into the Constitution and other legislations, the Constitution under Articles 338 and 338A provides for two statutory commissions, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Acts and commissions for the protection of marginalized classes, Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989. Bonded Labor System Abolition Act 1976. The Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986. National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes.